Hello everyone, thanks for watching this video. This video will teach you what you need to do in Microsoft Access in order to accomplish Lab 2. So specifically, there's three things you'll need to do. You'll need to create forms, queries, and reports. So I'll go through each of those things one by one, starting off with the forms. So I'm going to start up Microsoft Access and open up that bookstore database you might remember from the first video. I'll click here. So just as a reminder as to what this database looks like, I'll just go into the relationships. So I had three tables. My book table has a book ID primary key. Customer table has a customer ID primary key, and my sale table has a sale ID primary key, and it has a foreign key to the book table and the customer table. I'm going to make a form for the sale table because that will let me show how you deal with these foreign keys on your form, specifically how you use the combo boxes so that when somebody's entering a sale on the form they can choose the book from a drop-down and the customer from another drop-down box. So the first thing you need to do to create a form is click Create, Form Wizard. So you get a drop-down of your tables, and you get to choose which table you want to create the form for. Let's do it for the sale table. Let's pick all the columns, hit Next. Now you get to decide what kind of layout you want. Usually you're going to pick column layout. That will make each column into one row on the form. The other layouts make each column a column on the form, which can be bad because if you have more than, say, 10 columns in your table, it'll try to put them all next to each other and you'll kind of run out of room. I think the column format is best, so I'll choose that. And then let's call this sale form. Okay, so this is what our form looks like now. Now there's a few issues with it. The first one is, now if we're going to use a form to enter data in the sale table, it's kind of a pain that we would have to look up the book ID and the customer ID each time. For example, let's say we sell a copy of The Sun Also Rises. Well, we would have to go in the book table, look and see, oh, that's book ID 3, close this up, then type a 3 in here, and then look up the customer's name here, find their customer ID, go back here, type it in. So we don't want to actually type the IDs here. We want to set this form up so that when we edit or add data to the sale table, we can use drop-down boxes to pick the book and the customer. So how do we set that up? To change the form, we want to right-click here and choose Design View. Now, before we fix the combo box issue, let's just make this look a little nicer by adding some spaces in our labels. It got these labels directly from our column names in our table, and if you follow good naming convention, then you would not have put spaces in your column names, which I didn't, but that just means when you make your form, you have to put the spaces back. Okay, so let's change book ID to be a combo box. To do that, click on the box so it has this orange outline. Then right click on the outline and select Change to Combo Box. Now you have to set up some of the properties on this combo box. To do that, right click, choose Properties. First, let's go to Data. So you need to tell Access which table is going to give it the list of books. It doesn't know that even though there is a foreign key in the database. So row source, you're going to hit drop down and pick the book table. bound column. So what that means is it's defaulting to 1, which is correct, but what that means is it's asking you which column in the book table has the primary key. Well, it's column 1, so that's good. Leave that as a 1. Limit to list, what does that mean? Limit to list means, are you going to let the user type in a book that's not in the book table? Obviously, that would be bad, so yes, you want to limit the book that they type in to the list of books in your book table, or else it will make an error when it tries to violate that primary key. Let's not allow value list edits, because if you want to edit the list of books, you would want to go to the book table directly. Okay, now formatting. Now the next part is a little trick in Access, which is not intuitive at all. So if this doesn't make sense, you might have to rewind the next little piece of this video and watch again. But basically, we want to have Access show us just the book name in the drop-down box. So to do that, we have to play a little trick on Access, which is you can't tell it just to show one column only. What you have to do is tell it actually show 2 columns, right, which is the book ID and the book name, right, 2 columns. This column, book ID, book title. But then you have to trick it by telling it to make the book ID column have a width of 0, so it will just show the book name. So I'm going to type for column width 0, comma, and then how many inches I want the book title to be, let's say 3 inches. So this is just a comma separated list of the widths of all the columns that you're showing. So if I picked that I want to show 3 columns, I would need 0, 3, something else for my third column. Okay. It doesn't make a lot of sense the way they set it up, but that's just what you have to do. Let's hit save. Close. Now what is the form going to look like? Good. So now when I'm editing or adding sales, I don't have to look up the book ID. I can just pick the book from my drop-down. You notice the drop-down is not wide enough. Let's fix that. So right-click, Design View. First we have to make the whole form wider. So just grab the edge of the form, drag it out. A little wider. Let's make the book ID column big. Now, since we're not actually showing the ID here, let's not label it as book ID on our form. Let's just call it book. Let's make the customer field also a drop-down. So click on it, right-click, change to combo box. We're going to just go through a very similar process for this drop-down as we did for the book drop-down. Make it wider. Maybe a little wider just to fit first and last name. Right-click, Properties, and again we need to tell it which table has all the customers in it. Customer table. Now bound column is 1 because our customer ID in the customer table is field 1. Again, limit it to list, yes. Allow edits, no. Now, the fun part, go to Format. Now, you'll notice here, oops, wrong table. In the customer table, we have customer ID, customer first name, customer last name. So we actually have 3 columns that we care about. Let's not worry about middle initial. So why don't we have our drop down show the first and last name? So what we'll have to do is say we're going to show 3 columns, but the first column, which is the ID column, make that 0 inches. And we have our first name and our last name. Okay, let's make each of those 2 inches. So 0 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. Okay, close, save, close, double click. Okay, now this is a little bit annoying because you notice when you hit the drop down it does give you first and last name, but if you don't select the drop down it's just giving you the first name. Now we're storing our first name and last name separately. Access is really annoying in that when you're looking at the form, if you don't click the drop down, it only can show one column from a table or query here. So the only way we could actually make it show Bob and the last name, like Clark Thompson, Bob Jones, would actually be to create a query that actually concatenates those two fields, meaning joins them together, and then set the row source to that instead of the customer table. It's really a pain to do that, and we're just kind of learning the basics here. So for now, let's just live with this. So it's only going to show us our first name. If we want to see our last name, you have to hit the drop down. So let's say we want to make an edit to something like, oh, we made a mistake. Clark bought a different book. He actually bought War and Peace. So just change it. And when you switch rows by clicking this, it saves it. If you want to add a new record, all you do is hit last record and then hit this one more time, and it gives you a new record. And you can see the sale ID is saying new because it hasn't generated the auto number yet. Let's choose a book. So this book was purchased by Bob Jones. He bought 2, and he did it, what day? Today. Okay. Now there's no save button, but in Access the way you save is just to switch rows. So let's go back to row 6. Okay, now we go back and it's saved. So that's how you make a form, and that's how you set up the combo boxes. So hopefully that was useful. The next thing we'll deal with is queries. So again, forms are used to input data, to add data, change data, delete data. But what we want to do now is get data back from the database. Now you can make a report that pulls directly from a table, but I prefer to create a query first usually, because in the query you can control certain formatting, which is very useful. So let's just create a query that shows the records in the book table. We'll do this simple query first, and then we'll do one that's a little more complicated. So how do we do this? Create Query Wizard. Let's pick Simple Query. Now, what table should it pull from? Let's pick the book table. Let's say that we don't want to show all the fields. Let's say we don't want to show the ID. Let's say we want to show the title, the author, and the year. So this is what's nice about a query, is you can have it just show a few columns because maybe the manager who's reading this report doesn't care about the book ID. Well, maybe the price would be good too. Okay, next. So now we're going to choose detail. Summary would be if you had a table with a lot of numeric information and you wanted to group it, but that's not the case. So what do we have here? This is a query. What does it show? Well, it just kind of looks like a table view, table data view, but what it lets us do is actually do some sorting and filtering. And the way you do that is you right click here and let's hit Design View. So the Design View is where you can make some changes to the data that you're showing. Let's make this a little bigger. So this is our book table. These are all the fields, and these are the fields we're showing. We're showing the title, author, year, and price. Now, if we wanted to show data from more than one table, we could add more tables and add fields from those tables, but for this first query, we'll be nice and simple and just show the fields from this table. Some things you can do here in your query view, you can sort. Let's say we wanted to sort by title. And you can also have filters. So let's say we only wanted to show books that had a price that was greater than $10. So you could put under criteria greater than 10. Okay? So we're going to sort by the title and only show books that are bigger, that have a price that's bigger than $10. An interesting thing you can look at if you right click here is the SQL view. So the SQL is what's behind the scenes. This is the code that's actually deciding, what to show and how to order the data. Now some of you might already know SQL, but if you don't, you'll learn soon in the next few weeks. But just as a quick preview, you can see we're selecting certain columns from our book table. The where clause has our filter, which says the book price has to be bigger than 10. And order by is saying that we're sorting by the book title column in the book table. Microsoft Access loves to add a lot of extra parentheses. These aren't really strictly necessary, but for whatever reason, Access likes them. So let's save our query. And then we can hit run. Now what do you see? Well, you can see that it's sorted by the title now. And we have one book, I believe, that's less than $10 that's not showing. Let's look at our book table. Yeah, this is a $4 book, so it's not showing in our query. What I'd like to do next is create a query that pulls from both the book table and the customer table and the sale table, so all three. First, let's just rename this query. I accidentally put a space in it, and as I might have mentioned before, spaces in object names or column names usually aren't good because they sometimes confuse other programming languages you might be using to retrieve the data. Like if you're using some kind of web interface with .NET or PHP or something. So let's create another query. Create query wizard. Okay, pick simple. This time though, let's put some fields from different tables. First, you notice that you can actually make a query that reads from another query. So we've got a book query that you can actually have a query pull fields from that, but let's not do that for now. Let's make it pull data from the book table. Well, let's start out with a sale table. So from the sale table, let's show the sale ID, the quantity, and the date. And then, because we have those foreign keys, we can actually pull data from more than one table. Let's have it show the title from the book table, and from the customer let's have it show the customer first name, last name. And you know what? It would be nice maybe. Well, no, let's leave it like this for now. Okay, hit next, finish. Okay, so this is what's really nice about having foreign keys. You can create reports really quickly, and Access knows how all the data links together. So sale ID 1, we had Bob Jones buying 3 copies of War and Peace on this date. Now let's say we wanted to add, you know what, I just realized it would be good to have the book price here too. So how can you change the columns after you create your report? I'm sorry, your query. Right click, let's go back to design view. So because we used the relationships last time to set up the foreign keys, Access was smart enough to know how to join these tables when we made this query. The next thing I'd like to do is add the book price to my query. So it's pretty simple to add another field. You just double click on it. And now when I run again, let's save, you can see for each sale I now show the price of the book. There's one other thing that would be nice in this query is how about a subtotal? So we show quantity times book price. How would we do that? Well, you can actually type in expressions here rather than selecting a field name. So how would we find out the subtotal? Well, just type in the name of the two fields, the names of the two fields you want to multiply. For example, sale table dot quantity. Times book dot book price. Now if I switch here, click down here, you can see it put in expr1 sales dot quantity. Let's make it wider. Times book dot book price. So what's going to happen? Save, run it. Why did it say okay? It got confused because I put sales. I put the wrong name for the sale table. And it thought I was trying to specify some kind of parameter. So now let's run it again. Okay, now it works. So yeah, that makes sense. 3 times $12.99 is $38.97. But I don't like how it called the column expr1. That's kind of like a default thing it calls it if you don't tell Access what to call this column. Since it's a computed column, we need to give it a name. Let's call it subtotal. Go back here, run. Okay, there we have it, subtotal. So, this was a more complicated query because we join tables and we have a computed column. And let's just change this name to get rid of that space. Good. So we've done actually the two complicated parts, the forms and the queries. The report, I think, will be very easy compared to the last two things. Let's make a sale report to show the data from our sale query. How do we do that? Go to Create, Report Wizard. Now, you can make a report that brings back data from a table or from a query. We created a sale query, so let's do that. Let's show all our columns. You can actually do grouping here if you want to. For example, if you want to have, say, a grouping by, if you want it grouped so it groups all the same sales for the same books together, you can do that. Or by customer, but let's not do that for now. We'll keep it simple. How do we want to sort it? Let's actually sort it by the sales date. And then maybe by book type. Okay. Okay, how do we want it to show? In this case, tabular is a better format because it's going to show one record on each row. So you picked column here for your form, but tabular is better for the report. Let's do landscape orientation just so we have a wider space to fit all our fields. We don't want to call it sale query. Let's call it sale report. Let's finish. Okay, so here's our sale report. So it looks a lot like our sale query with some problems. Looks like this column isn't wide enough, so that's why you're seeing all this stuff. Looks like the book title column is too wide, and we're losing our subtotal, so we have to fix some stuff on the report. How do you fix it? Right click, Design View, let's make the sale date column wider so we don't get it cut off. Now something that's a little annoying here, I'm just going to hit undo, is if you want to push stuff over, you have to move everything over. So if I wanted to make the sale date bigger, I'd actually have to push everything over, or I can just select my book title column, maybe make it a little narrower. Let's make my sale date wider. And you have to adjust both up here where it's in the header and here in the detail. It's kind of annoying. I don't like the interface for changing the design of the report. Now let's see what it looks like now. I'm just playing with the columns. Report view. Okay, so our dates fit, and you'll notice it's sorted by the date, book title. Oh, and I think I made my book title narrow enough so it now shows my subtotal. Good. So let's fix some of these columns. Design view. I'm going to change some of my column names. Let's call that, oops, sales date. Just taking a column name, just adding spaces to my column names, which is okay in a report. We don't need to say customer first name. It's kind of obvious it's a customer. It defaults to the same column names in your report, but you can change it to make it more user-friendly, just like on your forms. We know it's a book price. We don't have to say book price. Subtotal, let's add a space. Now, instead of just calling it sales report, let's call it something like sales at ABC Books. Okay, and finally we save and we run it again. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Reports are pretty easy. Basically, you just point them to a query, decide what columns you want, pick your sorting, and then fix the spacing for the columns and fix your column title, your column names and your title. So that's it. So now I've shown the forms, the queries, and the reports, and I hope this gives everyone the information necessary to do Lab 2. But if not, feel free to email me with your questions. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.